Show this morning. The topic today is breaking the revolving door syndrome, and we're talking to the pastor of the Hands of God Christian Church, Pastor Kevin Walker. And of course, Pastor Walker, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Good morning, Dr. Haney, and thank you for allowing me to be here once again.
We're glad to have you here, Pastor Walker. As a matter of fact, we've had you here on a number of occasions, and so nothing that we will do here today should be strange to you. You see, essentially what we want you to do is to give us the same basic kind of information, because what you generally bring to us is a wake-up call.
All right.
And I think that if we need a wake-up call in any area today, it certainly has to do with the period that we dealing with African American or youth incarceration.
Yes.
You see, and so we want to talk about that today. But before we get into that, Pastor Walker, let's have you to give us some information about your background, your education, and some of the things that were important in terms of you establishing the church, the Hands of God Christian Church, and then we'll talk about some of the other problems that you know of.
Okay, Dr. Haney, I was born here in Nashville, raised in Nashville. Early part of my life, I lived in North Nashville. I went to the public school systems here in Nashville. I did not graduate from high school. I went to high school, but I was one of those characters during the time, and I was actually thrown out of the school system. But later years, I went to the Navy and got out of the Navy, got a GED through OIC, and from there I went to Tennessee State University for a short period of time. All during this period of time, my early life, I was involved with drugs and crime and stuff like that. So my stay in college didn't last a long time as well, and I ended up on drugs, got incarcerated and everything, and spent about 5 years of my life incarcerated in the Tennessee State prison system. That in and of itself, and experiencing 17 years of drug addiction has led to my passion for what I do now. I began pastoring the Hands of God. I was called into ministry back on August 24th, 1986. God divinely intervened in my life and miraculously delivered me from drug addiction and called me into ministry at that time. And then in 1993, I began to pastor. I began to pastor the Hands of God. Actually, at the time, it was a church under another name, Mount Olive Spiritual Church, and we went on to change the name. And I actually founded the Hands of God Christian Church back in 1999, of course. And from that point on, I've been pastoring the church, and this is where I am right now in my life today, in terms of the background and where I came from and who I am. My real passion in life, Dr. Haney, is to reach out into where I came from and to make a difference in the lives of people that are yet suffering in incarceration, dealing with drug addiction, dealing with all manner of social evils and ills and the like. Therefore, the birth of the Hands of God Recovery Ministry has come into play, as well as the Hands of God Christian Church. And this ministry is designed, of course, to reach out into life, into people's lives, and to actually make a difference. We're trying to serve people, the economically disadvantaged, the drug addicted, the alcoholic, the homeless, those that are the incarcerated, those who are coming out of the prison system and who are looking for some solutions to some of life-threatening situations and problems. Because, Dr. Haney, a lot of people just don't know just how much is involved in an individual, how much goes on with an individual when they are released from the prison system. See, and we talk about the recidivism rate or the reincarceration rate or the recommitment rate and how high it is, and they do all types of studies and reports on it. Even the Tennessee Department of Correction, they do these studies and reports. But they don't indicate in these studies, the only thing they're throwing figures that this percentage goes in, this percentage is stay out 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, we got this percent, that percent, the other percent. But the factors that involved in what causes people to become reincarcerated? What causes people to go back and to revisit old criminal type behavior and to do the same thing that got them incarcerated in the first place? And that's what I would like to talk about today, and that's for the Hands of God Recovery Ministry has been birthed, to make a difference.
Now before we have our first commercial break, and I think we're getting nearing that now, but when we come back, I want you to also indicate that at one time you worked with another group of inmates.
Yes, I did.
That even though you mentioned the fact that you've been incarcerated, but that since you've been out, you've been very, very active, in terms of establishing other organizations. And so when we come back, I want you to start off by talking about the New Beginnings organization and how that organization came into being. That will allow people to see not only were you incarcerated, but it also will allow them to see the kind of activity that you've done in terms of going back in to this situation and trying to bring some of those individuals out. Because, and I say that because I know that this is a very, very important organization, and I know that you put quite a bit of work in it, and that the Hands of God Christian Ministry is really a completion of what you are doing, what you have done in reality. So when we come back after this first short commercial break, then we want you to talk about that. We'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. A question of incarceration